Hi everyone and welcome back to National League Lowdown with me, Dan. As you can see, I'm joined again by Craig. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you, mate. Some big issues from the game I was at yesterday. Looking forward to diving into them soon, and pleased to have Louis with us today to talk all things Sutton. Although, obviously, for him, he'd appreciate in better circumstances for them. But we'll get onto that soon.
Yeah, good to have you with us, Craig. Louis, thanks for joining us, mate. Like Craig says, we wish it was in better circumstances, but it's good to get, a fan perspective rather than me and Craig sat here talking about Sutton. We'd rather get a Sutton fan on. So, how are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, better circumstances would be nice, but looking forward to crack on and chatting about some what was a good weekend of National League football elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there was some outstanding fixtures. We'll get onto them in the deep dive, but I mean, if you predicted some of them results, you're better people than us. We'll talk about predictions later on as well. But some of them games were seriously topsy turvy, up and down. A real good advert for non-league football, in my opinion. You watch a lot of like the top flight stuff these days, and it's not as exciting as some of the non-league stuff. So we'll get into that, but we'll start with Sutton. Obviously, Louis, with you joining us. Obviously, tough start to the season. Your only win coming against Carlisle, which is disappointing for me. But how have you seen the start to the season?
Yeah, you sort of summed up incredibly disappointing. I think there was an expectation at the beginning of the season to sort of push on from last year. Obviously, finishing 12th last year, probably wanted to kick on and maybe challenge for a playoff place, and it just hasn't happened. Things just haven't gone to plan. Pre-season was positive. We beat Wimbledon, we beat Wickham, we gave a good going against Millwall. But yeah, in the league, it's just not really happened, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was quite impressed with you against Carlisle when you played us. But in general, obviously, you've said there, it's not been good enough, has it? And just wanted to ask you a little bit about obviously the manager, Steve Morrison. Is he under massive pressure now with the results heading the way they are, or do you think he's still got the backing?
I think from the fan sentiment, there's a lot of fans that are calling for him to go. I don't think he will be sacked. I think we're quite a patient club. We did it when Matt Gray was in trouble in the EFL. We sort of waited it out, and there was that sort of sentimental value with him, given that he got us in the Football League, which probably gave him a bit longer. But yeah, I mean, results-wise, any other club, I think he probably would have be gone by now. But I think our board is quite patient with their managers. And there's always the sort of like trust the process stuff that goes on. But at the moment, it's sort of difficult to get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, to be fair, because it's still early days as well. So some teams have only played 8 games, some have played 9. It could still be turned around, can't it? And I think to pull the trigger this early, it could end up being a mistake in the long run. It just depends. But again, like you say, a lot of teams wouldn't be this patient. I think that's a bit of credit to yourselves as a club that you aren't going to be too gung ho with it and just get rid of him on a whim. Obviously, you've got some fixtures coming up. Do you think you can get some potential wins in there to obviously get the morale going, get a bit of momentum behind you?
So I mean, when the fixture list came out, I always remember looking at it thinking, Christ, we've got one hell of a tough start. So we had Hughes at home, we had Forest Green away, we had York away, we had Rochdale away, Scunthorpe at home, and you sort of thought, Christ, are we going to get any points in the first 6 or 7 games? And if you'd given us 5 points, or if you'd said to me at the beginning of the season, you'll get 5 points in the first month, by all means, you might be disappointed, but we'd have probably taken it given the games we had. But yeah, the next, until the end of September are crucial. We've got Brackley, we've got Woking, we've got Boston, and we've got Yeovil. All teams that haven't had great starts to the season, maybe Brackley aside. And if we didn't pick up points in those games, we could be cut adrift with a quarter of the season gone.
Yeah, that's why I brought the fixtures up because I know you'd had a tough start, and then there is some what I would say winnable games coming up, and it's about momentum. Football's all about momentum, and getting on a good run. If you could even take, I don't know, win 3 out of them 4 games, things are looking a lot more rosy. We're not talking about potential managers getting sacked and things like that. And we've talked a lot on here recently about football being quite, fickle in the terms of, oh, let's get him sacked, and then you win a couple of games and everyone kind of forgets and things like that. But before obviously we get on to like, turning it round and things like that, just some of the key players in your squad. I know Craig's talked highly of Jack Sims in goal. There's a couple of ex-Carlisle players in there, Ashley Naddison, Jaden Harris. What's their form been like?
Well, yeah, Sims, I think, is that we were lucky to keep hold of him in the summer. I think he easily could have moved on to the Football League. Outstanding keeper. Harris came back from a long injury, got injured in November last year and didn't play for 2/3 of the season. So he was still getting up to speed in some respects. But his game against Carlisle was his best game of the season so far. So whether there was some sort of personal reason for that, I don't know. And that is, I think he's a confident striker. I think he needs a run of games where he'll get a couple of goals. And I think if he starts scoring, then it'll just sort of motor from there. He got 7 in pre-season, and then it's just sort of petered out a bit. He got 1 last week against Altrincham. Yeah, it's a shame because there is a lot of quality in our squad, I think. But yeah, something just isn't clicking at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And just talking about the players in your squad, I'm going to pass over to Craig. I know Craig's got some questions around recruitment and things for you.
Yeah, so for anyone that's listened to this pod before, me and Dan were very kind of pro your recruitment, recruiting from the National League South a lot and kind of giving players a chance to step up, whereas Mark was a little bit dismissive of it, shall we say. How do you feel it was? Do you think the recruitment's good and it will gel, or do you think, looking back 9 games in now, that maybe you needed a little bit more experience and maybe the recruitment was wrong? Because it was done very early in the summer as well, very early.
I like the recruitment, and I still think the players that we brought in are capable of making that step up. I think Liam Vincent, our fullback, who signed from Tonbridge, has been very good. I think David Ogbonna from Slough scored a great goal against Carlisle, in case you remember that one, Dan.
I do.
Yeah, I think he's looked good. Some of them haven't really had a run of games. Kane Critchlow hasn't. I think he's only had a couple of starts. Jacob White from Hereford hasn't really been in the squad much. And then we've had a few injuries as well, which has sort of delayed some starts. So I was a fan of it. And I think last season we did bring in huge amounts of inexperience in our recruitment for last season. I think this year we brought in the likes of Aaron Jones, Harry Phipps. Both of them have had a number of seasons in the National League. And I think those 2 players were brought in with that sort of experience in mind, alongside Woodyard, who we brought in January. So I think we noticed that there was experience needed, but maybe we just didn't bring enough of it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think recruitment-wise, like we said, we were really praising it about how early you got your business done, things like that. And I was keeping an eye on pre-season. I remember saying about Naddison scoring a few goals in pre-season, things like that. And I know, obviously, you said for the season at the start, you were like, let's build on last season, finish higher than 12th and where you finished. Do you still think you can finish higher than that? Because, like I said, it's still early days. You could win the next 4 games, 3-4 games, and you could easily climb up that league. Has your expectations changed at all? Or are you thinking now, now you've struggled a bit, that maybe just finishing around the same area again would be a success now?
I think you have to take it a month at a time, really. If we go through the next couple of fixtures, as we mentioned, and we don't pick up the points, then we're going to have to sort of realign our thoughts, I think. But as you say, it is such a long season. I think because of the open nature of the league, everyone beats everyone. So the gap in points difference between 4th from bottom to 8th and 10th is very different. Like, as you say, you could go on a run of 3 wins and you're up the table and flying. The main thing is that we make sure we don't get cut adrift or start losing games to the teams around us, which I think could be a real issue if we don't pick up points in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that you pretty much hit the nail on the head there, mate. I think you need to be beating the teams in and around that area, and a lot of your upcoming games are against those sides. So I think you'd have a better idea in the next month or so as to where them expectations are going to be. Like I said, it's pretty much early days. But as far as Sutton goes, that's our questions for you, mate. We're going to head into the deep dive a little bit now, and we're going to start with Sutton. So obviously you can give us your perspective. So Sutton 2, Tamworth 3, all the action in the first half by the looks of it. How did you see this game, mate?
Well, it was a game we needed to win, I think. And yeah, one for the neutral as well. We just 3 goals that we gave away to Tamworth with 3 defensive errors. The first one was a poor header back, and keeper gets cut short, and he gives away the penalty. Second one is Tom Tonks with his long throw-ins. You plan for it all week, but we left the man unmarked in the middle of the box, and he heads it in. And then 30 seconds after we get back to 2-2, we give them another goal by 2 players going up for the header and clashing into each other. So yeah, 3 defensive errors there that shot us in the foot, and we sort of huffed and puffed in the second half. We had a few sort of half chances, but then when you're 3-2 at home to Tamworth, going out into the second half, the momentum is going to be on you. You're going to have the territory. You're going to have the possession. If you don't create clear-cut chances, it is a worry. And there are as I said, there are a few half chances. But once the sort of game sort of got killed off, as the away side will do, we didn't look like we were going to score in that last 10, 15 minutes, I didn't think.
Yeah, I mean, how often do you see it though, where there's a lot of goals in the first half and then there's no goals in the second half? Happens quite more often than you think. But for me, I think that's a massive win for Tamworth. One on the road at Braintree. Sorry, Craig, for mentioning that, but we said their home form was going to be massive for them. Away from home, that's two wins now as well, so they're doing well as well. But yeah, Sutton, I think the goals were mistakes and could have been avoided. That, like you say, them long throws, you'd have been practicing them all week in training, and to just gift a goal or a free chance away, marked, disappointing, isn't it? Craig, how did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, there's not really too much for me to add, to be honest. I think that the game was obviously won by Sutton making more errors than Tamworth. I thought Tamworth made a couple for the goals as well. And it was kind of a first half like littered with errors. Tamworth then had something to protect in the second half, and Sutton had a few half chances, but nothing really to note. And then Tamworth, take the 3 points, move on. Their away form is surprising us, and their whole form is really surprising me, as obviously I had them to go down, which still early days, could happen, but they're definitely proving me wrong at the moment. But yeah, we talked about Sutton a couple of weeks ago, and if they could use that Carlisle game as a springboard, well, it doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. We thought that might be the start of their season, and it hasn't been. But yeah, conceding far too many goals at the minute through individual errors, and if they cut them out, there is quality in that team. We've seen that to score goals, just cut out the silly errors.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, errors galore. But that's what happens when you struggle, when you're struggling and things, and you see teams when they are struggling down the bottom and they're on a bad run of form. These things don't go your way. But if you're at the top, the opposite happens. So it might be all swings and roundabouts. And like we said with Louis before, in a month's time, we could be looking at something in a totally different light on the back of, I don't know, 9 points from 12 or even 12 from 12, depending. We'll wait and see. Next, we've got the game of the day for me, which was Solihull 4, Morecambe 4. Even if you had this down as a draw, I find it hard to believe anyone would have predicted 4-4. I mean, Callum was wax lyrical about him in the group chat, but Jacob Wakeling, 4 goals in 2 games. What a signing he's been. Craig, how did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, a game for the neutrals, definitely. I think a game maybe lacking in a little bit of quality in stages as well, that again highlighted by a few mistakes and a few indecisive moments, but then some clinical finishing alongside as well. And Miguel Aziz, he's probably in the running for goal of the month. That was an excellent strike from him. Good for Morecambe to pick up some points. Obviously, they're still talking about being judged at the end of October, but the manager's expectations are getting a little bit higher as well, should we say, because he said they're going to be the best footballing team in England, I think was his statement, or something along them lines. So you're going to talk the talk, you've definitely got to walk the walk afterwards. And they do play some good stuff. You could see the patterns are coming, but they're far too open as well. So it wouldn't surprise me with Morecambe. I wouldn't say we're going to see 4-4s every week, but I think there's going to be goals in their game, because they are looking like they're clicking going forwards a little bit, but defensively they're a little bit of a shambles still. And Solihull probably just playing a little bit unleashed. No one obviously in permanent charge there at the moment. Just go out there and play football and have a bit and see where it takes you. And to score 4 goals at home and to not walk away with the 3 points, they're going to be fuming, because you score 4 goals in any game, you've got to win them, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about Solihull, I was watching the Southampton Portsmouth game, and Matt Taylor was on the punditry. I was like, oh, he's slotted himself back in a job there. No bother. But yeah, I did quite kind of find that a little bit funny. Louis, obviously, game of the day, like we say. Some outstanding moments, some standout comments as well from the Morecambe manager, which Craig touched on, which was very confusing to me, because I just think it's unnecessary pressure being put on his side, because we're now expecting them to play this amazing football. How did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, watching the highlights, it was a very open game. I think Morecambe looked like they were playing the nicer football out of the two based upon the highlights. 2 lovely goals, as mentioned by Craig. Yeah, some of the Solihull ones were quite fortuitous as well, sort of dribbled into the back of the net after bouncing off someone. But yeah, Morecambe, I think with Morecambe, it's one of those, it's a weird one, because they probably want to play games to be able to get that routine going, get their match fitness up, but also they don't want to be playing games because they don't want to be dropping points when they're not as fit or haven't had the pre-season that everyone else has had. Yeah, the comments from the manager are entertaining. They're playing nice football, but whether it's going to end up being the nicest football in England is another question.
Yeah, I mean, watch out, Pep Guardiola. Watch out. That's all I would say. He's coming for your job. I just think with the situation Morecambe's been in, it's obviously good that they've still got a football club to support and things like that. But with a team full of new players, I just feel like those comments are just going to add unnecessary pressure on a team that's going to probably struggle. I feel like he didn't need to say it, but there you go. We might be sat here in October judging them, and they're playing the best football we've ever seen, playing some revolutionary stuff. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, just seems like unnecessary to me. Next game, Craig. Obviously, I'll come to you because you were on comms for this one. Braintree 2, York 3. Outstanding comeback from York. Showing some real mettle there. Obviously, you've seen it. How did you see it, mate?
Yeah, so the first half, York was so open in transitions. They were playing their tidy football as you expect, but anytime Braintree won the ball, they were just kind of had so much space. So Marley Miranda, especially, or Goran Babic, had about 50 yards every time they got the ball to just travel with the ball. Every time York attacked, it was one of the left or right centre back seemed to always join in the attacks, which meant they could potentially have overloads. But if they lost it, they were so open. Hiram Boateng kind of as their pivot midfielder, and he just got overrun in there and eventually got pulled in the second half after getting a booking when he could have easily probably had one a little bit earlier as well. But yeah, they're really good games. Harold Works, obviously, for Braintree, only got announced about midday that he'd signed on loan from Fulham, and by 5 minutes past 3, he'd already scored on his debut. So a great start for him, and then managed to grab a second one in the second half. And then, unfortunately for him, he's at 2-1. Sorry, he should have made it 3-1. He's missed an absolute sitter, and that's when you get that feeling that it might be edging York's way. But just to talk about a lad that we've talked about in the last week or so already, Alex Hunt, what a free kick he scored. I don't know if you boys have seen it, but if you draw a circle in the goal where you wanted the ball to go, he's got it perfectly through there. And then I can't believe the Zone didn't put it on their little highlights package, but literally 3-4 minutes later, basically an identical spot, but he's whipped at the other side and it's come off the post. So he could have scored 4 goals in a week and could be having his own goal of the month competition, and it would have been a spectacular watch as well. But yeah, York obviously, once they scored their second goal and got to 2-2, it always felt like they were going to be winning. I kept using the phrase, they're not even knocking on the door now, they're smashing on it. And we can talk about the penalty all day, and I will get onto the referee in a minute. It was fortuitous, but they should have had one of moments beforehand. And you pick any player in this league that you want to probably step up and take a penalty in the 93rd minute, Ollie Pearce is going to be right towards the top of your list. From the minute he stepped up, you knew he was going to score. 3-2 them, probably deserved from their comeback, but on a Braintree side, they played so well for 50, 55 minutes. Haven't sung his praises much this season, but Akinde, at the minute he went off the game, we had nothing holding up for us, and it was just coming back and back and back. We need someone similar to him who may be happy to play the backup role or rotate with him. So when we are replacing him, because he struggles to do 90 each week, it's not so noticeable because we brought in a young 19-year-old, I think he is, Freddie Hockey, and he struggled. He's a lovely lad, works hard for the team, but he's not John Akinde in that when you're under pressure, here, pin a centre half, buy a foul, get you up the pitch. But if you boys are ready, I'm ready for my referees rant now. I feel like I've kind of got myself up for it. So first things first, I've been talking to York fans on X all afternoon about this, and we've simultaneously agreed that this rant is not going to be a biased rant. He was awful from minute 1 to a minute 101 for both teams. He's probably the worst refereeing performance I've seen in a long time. He was so indecisive, and he made some weird decisions. Like, ball got played through to Shea Cooper in the first half, and he gave offside. The linesman didn't even stick his flag up, and I was like, it's a bit odd kind of thing. Then Boateng made a foul and didn't get a yellow. Kinde's made almost a similar one a minute later, and he's got the yellow. No consistency there. We've probably pushed Mark Kitchen on the first goal and not give him. And then they should have a Stonewall penalty in the 87th minute, and he hasn't given it. And for me to be saying that as a Braintree fan that York has a Stonewall penalty, that shows how much of a Stonewall penalty it was, kind of thing. And then he gives them a penalty 5 minutes later, which was never a penalty in a million years. If anything, he was knocked into it by a York player, and it possibly hit his arm. I reckon it was borderline. But yeah, he was just so indecisive in some of his decisions. It took him 45 seconds to give a goal kick. The whole stadium was just staring at him, and he was like, oh yeah, I'll give a goal kick now. Kind of. It was just, I don't want to hammer referees. I come on hopefully trying to give something positive. They played a lovely advantage, or they've refereed the game really well, but he was so bad. And it's really disappointing because that's my lasting memory of what was an excellent game of football, by the way. That the last stinging effect for me is that the referee was awful, not that fantastic 5-goal thriller that had a bit of everything: torrential rain, thunderstorms, lightning, great tackles, great goals, great saves from both goalkeepers. But the referee's the lasting thing in my head, and not just on a Braintree fan. York fans were even, despite their comeback, was still annoyed with him afterwards as well. But yeah, fair play to York coming back. After losing their last year, they probably had a feeling it was going to happen again, but to come back the way they did. And I'll breathe now. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny you should say that, because the referee in the Carlisle Aldershot game wasn't much better than that. Regan Linney got pulled back at one point, and then he kind of like shoved his man off, and he booked both of them. And everyone was like, "How's he booked Linney?" Like Linney was just stood there with his arms folded, like, "What are you doing?" There was numerous times, but yeah, standard of officiating is a real problem. You don't want to come away from games and take that as your lasting thing, but sometimes it's just impossible not to. Louis, anything to add on the Braintree York game, mate?
Yeah, I mean, that system from Works is probably still waiting to land, isn't it? It's still in the air somewhere in Braintree, I imagine.
I picked up the ball on my way home.
I think it's sign of champions from York to sort of get that last minute winner. Work in progress under Maynard, but obviously Hinchelwood's, you've obviously spoken about on previous podcasts, was a great manager. Maynard's also a great manager. The Notts County side that he had last year, like top XG in League Two, top chances created, like he will get York going, I think, and there'll be a work in progress. They'll have gaps at the back, like you said yesterday. But yeah, I think it's a good thing for signs to come for York.
Yeah, definitely. I said there last week after they'd had that break, because the ground was being used for the Women's Rugby World Cup. I said we'll see what they're like with the manager change and everything since they've come back. But they've obviously won 4-0 midweek, and then come back from behind on Saturday against Braintree. They're looking a really good outfit to me.
3 wins from 3, and in all very different circumstances. So they've shown that about them, that they can adapt and overcome adversity, and so fair play to them. But yeah, still a tinge of disappointment here.
Yeah, I mean, from a Braintree perspective, I think if you'd said 3-2 defeat at the start, I think you'd probably have took it. But the manner of it being 2-0 up, missing a chance at 2-1 to go 3-1, the penalty not being a penalty, things like that. It's like it feels worse than it is. But yeah, I think York, from a Carlisle perspective, we're expected to be up the top. I'm expecting if we finish higher than York, then I'm expecting us to have had a very good season. York look a really good outfit. Next, we've got Boreham Wood 3, Altrincham 1. Louis, I'll come to you first for this one, mate. Boreham Wood pretty much had this wrapped up in the first half. Pretty solid display again from them and the flying high.
Yeah, as you say, flying high, they're top of the form table. Intensity, pace, everything you could want from an attacking outlet. Altrincham, seemingly from the highlights, just couldn't handle them. They've got so much quality with their two wingers, Souza and Abdulhamaki, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know whether I've watched his name. And then they've got the experience with like Bush, Ilasame. I noticed Ashmore didn't play, but yeah, the experience they've got, the quality they've got, the pace they play with. They've got two players in King and Brunt who've won the league before. It's seemingly everything is clicking at the moment. My only concern with them would be their squad depth. They've got a squad of about 18 or 19 players. When you get to Christmas, if they have a few injuries, they're going to have shortened on the bench. They're going to have players, and it's now, flying high at the moment. But I think they need to recruit a bit more if they want to sustain their position in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we had a Boreham Wood fan on, Brett, on the last one, and he was saying obviously he was aware of the squad and things like that, and is that if we can get enough points on the board early on, obviously they're up to I think it's fifth in the league now, flying high at the minute, and I think if they can get enough points on the board, if they do pick up injuries and they maybe lose a couple of games here and there, they maybe already got enough of a springboard, to do well. So. Again, for Altrincham, for me, they're just one of them teams. The win one, the lose one, win one, lose one. It's very inconsistent. Carlisle's there at the weekend. We'll wait and see which Altrincham turns up on that day. Hopefully, it's the one that turned up at Boreham Wood, but we'll wait and see. Craig, how did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, so we've obviously talked about big signings, and probably the one that has happened in the last couple of weeks and has helped Boreham Wood move to the top of the form table is Zach Brunt. Obviously, as Louis said, he was a league winner last season. Didn't quite get into the Barnet team at the early stage of this season, so he's gone to Boreham Wood, probably for mainly locations reasons. If you'd have asked maybe a Carlisle or a Forest Green or something, would they take him? The answer would probably be yes, but for practicality, from Barnet to Boreham Wood is obviously not far at all. They've absolutely landed on their feet there with that, and it's an excellent signing. And he's picking up goals, assists, and he's just looking like he's the one linking everything together for them. We spoke to Brett last week about Luke Norris and singing his praises, but he wasn't even in the squad yesterday, and they're scoring 3 goals. So there is a little bit of depth, but I get what Louis is saying in terms of their squad is thin. They've got some versatile type players that can fill in different gaps, but yeah, the worry for them will be when that real fixture schedule comes on. The away pitch for them, because their pitch is a carpet, which may be a bit heavy, and then going again 3 days later with a squad that's a little bit thinner and having to rotate, that might be where they come undone. But yeah, at the moment they're absolutely flying, and the form team in the league, and for them, what a start to coming up, probably above their wildest ambitions. So yeah, as Brett done, probably changing his kind of season's ambitions for the better and aiming for playoffs. But I don't think they get there, as we said. But what a start for them! What a start!
Yeah,
they were always challenges. Sorry, they were always challenges before they went down. So it's no surprise in some ways that with an experienced manager like Garrard that they could challenge. I think Matt Rush, their other striker that played yesterday, is a great striker. We had him last year, but we just didn't use him. I think we just got an offer that we couldn't refuse for a player who wasn't playing. But I think he's just such a good striker. And
he's a nuisance, isn't he? He just doesn't stop running as well.
Yeah.
He was at Braintree a few seasons back in the south with us, and then I think he may have I think he's jumped around a bit. He hasn't really found a home yet, but he seems to be quite settled at Boreham Wood. And if he's now their starting man, he's got in over Luke Norris. Long may it continue for him. He's scored a couple of goals himself.
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed. I said to Brett the other day, I think Boreham Wood's the best team that's come up to Brunton Park so far this season as well. Probably should have come away with 3 points. In the end, they came away with a point, but from 3-1 down, but they're very impressive. And like you say, that they've challenged in this league before, so we talk about obviously expectation. It's not really a surprise, but it still is because they come up. But like I say, we'll see where they are in a few months' time if they pick up injuries and things like that. But nothing but positive so far from them. Next, we've got Wealdstone 2, Gateshead 2. Craig, I'll come to you first. Another 2 goals for Kane Adon. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Honestly, he's been on fire, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's doing really well, and they needed it because I think that the name everyone that's going to stick out for this one is George Shelby, the goalkeeper for Gateshead. He had an eventful day, shall we say. 4 minutes in, his clearance gets blocked by Dom Hutchinson and goes in the back of the net. And you think, it's okay, one thing happens. Then 79 minutes in, he gets the assist for Kane Adams' goal, the long kick, and it's a bit indecisive from Wealdstone about. And you're like, okay, one each one. Then he pulls off an absolute wonder save onto the crossbar. Some think he's celebrating that he saved it. I think he's generally just lost the flight of the ball and has no idea where it is. And then it falls to, obviously, friend of the pod, Match Kretschmar, who fires it home. But yeah, it was an entertaining game again, but just littered with errors all over the place. Both goalkeepers had a moment. That second goal we took out for Kane Adam was indecisive goalkeeping. He got caught in no man's land. He didn't know whether to come and fully come or stay, and he kind of done nothing, got rounded, and then rolled it into an empty net. So yeah, a game littered with errors, but entertaining again, and good to see Max scoring again.
Yeah, like you say, first thing I seen was Max Kretschmar on the score sheet. I was like, friend of the podcast in the group chat. He was straight in there saying what a good finish it was, and it was a great finish. But yeah, eventful day. The one thing I did want to say on Gateshead was I think this is a real positive for them because we were worried how they were going to react to losing 5-0 at Woking. That was a big, heavy defeat that could have potentially, derailed the entire season. I think to come back and, get a point on the road at Wealdstone, which is a hard place to go, as we've seen so far this season. So credit to them for just, kind of getting back on track a little bit. Louis, how did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, entertaining game again, but as Craig said, absolutely littered with mistakes. I don't know, for Kane Adon's second goal, I don't know whether the goalkeeper and defender are trying to run away from the ball as fast as they can because they both seem to run in opposite directions. Yeah, we had Adon on loan for about 6 weeks last year, I think, towards the end of the season, and you could sort of see that he was a decent player, and I think he just sort of needed that sort of arm around his shoulder, settled run of games, which he seems to have got at Gateshead. And he's got 5 goals for the season already, isn't he? And seems to be the sort of main man so far. So yeah, for him, long may it continue. But yeah, one we missed out on again.
Yeah, like you say, I think he's in some serious good form, and I think if he keeps scoring, Gateshead will create chances for him. It's just whether they can hold out at the back, isn't it? But again, time will tell. Next, we've got Halifax Eastleigh, which was the late kickoff, which was 2-2. I watched the majority of this game actually when I got in, and Eastleigh comfortable in the first half, 2-0 up. And then the second half, it was the typical tale of two halves. Eastleigh comfortable first half, and then second half was just an onslaught from Halifax, and they missed enough chances. They could have won it about 5 or 6-2. They missed enough chances, but obviously they got a point in the end. This was the game that when we were doing our predictions, we all kind of said, I don't really know what to expect here because they've both been really mixed to start the season. Louis, I'll come back to you first, mate. How did you see this one?
Yeah, it's two sides that have had in different starts of the season, isn't it? And they seem to have a different sort of halves of the game. I think I didn't actually see the highlights. I didn't end up on YouTube, but I read that Lakeland said that apart from 10, 15 minutes, it was all Halifax, and he seemed to suggest that they created all the chances. So despite coming, being 2-0 down in the 80th minute and getting it back to 2-2, he didn't seem happy with the point. He seemed like he wanted more.
Yeah, I mean, like from what I seen, like I say, I seen the majority of it. Eastleigh got the 2 goals and they were comfortable, but it was pretty much an onslaught from there on in. But it was the subs really for me that I see. Like they brought Will Harris on. I'm trying to think of Latty Fairweather, the guy who scored the winner. They brought him on, and the subs really changed the game, and obviously won them the game in the end. Harris got the assist. And then they got the winner. Again, the winner, the equaliser, sorry. And I just think, for me, it was just so typical of the way they've both started the season. Like you said, Louis, that it's been so mixed, a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get, and it was like that from probably half to half, or every 15 minutes you didn't know what was going to happen. Craig, how did you see this one, mate?
Yeah, two teams, as you said, that can blow hot and cold, and both blew hot for a little bit and both blew very cold for a little bit. Momentum swung in the second half, and it was nothing more than Halifax deserved. But yeah, nothing really more to add than that. Than we all knew it was going. We had no idea which way it was going to go. So I think every prediction we had on the pod was a draw, and ultimately we were proved right on that one. Probably one of the only things we are ever proved right on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to the predictions in a little bit, but yeah, I think we all sat on a draw because we honestly didn't know, so we were just like, the safest thing in the world is just to go for a draw and sit on that fence. Up next, obviously, we've got our 6 in 6 minutes. It's with the absence of Mark. We're looking forward to having Mark back at some point, but he's really busy at the moment with work and stuff. But we do miss you, Mark, so we'll get you back as quick as. But Craig, it's your turn this week. 6 in 6 minutes. Your time starts now.
Perfect. Okay, off we go. So we start at Truro. Rochdale go top by winning 1-0 away at Truro with a goal from Kyron Gordon difference. It's a tough place to go, Truro, but York, Southend and now Rochdale have found a way to win. So for Truro, maybe their home form isn't picked them up as many points as we expected. And when will they get their big scout there? Will it be coming soon? Because they're going to need to pick up a few scouts because they're going to start. If not, their away form will have to change as well. Moving on to game number 2, Forest Green haven't been in the deep dive as much as they'd hoped recently because they've been getting routine victories. Oh, that stopped yesterday. They dropped down to second after drawing 1-1 at home to Scunthorpe. Tale of a really early goal and a really late goal. Declan Howe, who we've sung the praises of on the pod throughout, scored after 2 minutes to look like the points were heading back to Scunthorpe. But after a goalmouth scramble, James Balagiza, apologise for the pronunciation if that's wrong, struck 8 minutes into stoppage time to ensure that both these teams stay unbeaten. So they're both probably very happy with their starts, and Scunthorpe will just be happy to finish the game, to be fair, although they'd have preferred it finished a minute earlier. Southend dropped points as well at home, another maybe shock for us on the pod. Zach Mills opened the scoring for Boston on the 81st minute and probably felt like he'd scored the winner, but mere minutes later, Southend had a penalty, which substitute who's recently introduced pretty much just before the penalty, Jack Bridge took. It was saved by Reece Lovett, and before the alert, Andy Dallas turned the rebound home. Dan would obviously maybe give a bit more in depth in this one in a moment because he was there. But Carlisle got a clean sheet against Aldershot, which I don't think anyone's managed to do yet this season. They've been very free scoring. It seemed to be a fairly routine win, and without Marcus Dewhurst's excellence in goal, it could have been a lot more for Carlisle. Of course, Regan Linney scored. He's top scorer in the league, and he's absolutely flying with 8 in his first 9. But maybe the other name on the score sheet was a massive shock for everyone. That was Beavis Mugabe, who got his first goal in a Carlisle shirt. Yeovil took their 3 games in a poor encounter, with Luke McCormack's instinctive finish in the second half stoppage time the difference. Wokin's unbeaten run stops at 4, and they can have no real complaints after that performance. New Yeovil manager Danny Webb was in attendance, but not in the dugout, although I kept seeing him kind of hovering nearby, trying to get some input across. He'd be delighted to see his team win, but we'll know after that performance there will still be lots of work to do when he starts his job there on Monday. Final game will be the shortest of them all because Hartlepool love a clean sheet, but will feel home 0-0 against Brackley is a missed opportunity, and Brackley are making themselves hard to beat on the road and picking up points. And if they can keep picking up points along the way, they will do very, very well and keep their head above water. And cut.
Yeah, that was a cracking one, mate. I think it was about 4 minutes. You done well there. But yeah, just obviously going on to what you said about Carlisle, it could have been a lot more. Dewhurst in goal was absolutely outstanding. 2 of the saves in particular, both from Linney. It was like they were having their own little game of football just between the 2 of them. Linney was shooting from every angle you could think of. He was saving most of them. But it was comfortable. But the goal, the best goal was Mugabe's proper instinctive finish. He took it like a striker rather than a centre half. So, but yeah, it's positives at Brunton Park at the minute. That's 3 wins in a row, 3 clean sheets. We're heading into a tricky period now where we're going to be playing Forest Green, we're going to be playing Scunthorpe, we're going to be playing York, we've got Altrincham away. after that, we've got a tough test now of some 4 or 5 games. I think the next game that I looked at, like, that would look like potentially maybe a home banker. I'll probably come back to this when we play them and we lose, but Halifax on the 4th of November. So we've got a real tough run of some games. So we'll be able to kind of tell where Carlisle's going to be come the nitty gritty that we've spoken about. But yeah, that was a cracking 6 in 6 minutes there, Craig. And then lastly, just before we finish up, Craig's going to give you an update on the table for our predictions. It wasn't the best week because there was so many crazy results or crazy score lines. But give us an update where we all stand, mate.
Yeah, so I actually won this week, but there was such minimal points between us. I was saying anyone's points from game week 8 would have beat anybody in game week 9. The highest points was myself with 13. That was one correct perfect score, which was the Halifax Eastleigh 2-2, which we just kind of threw out there because we didn't know what we were going to get from either two. So I went perfectly on the fence, and it come out for me and Mark on that one. We both had that one. So I got 13, Mark got 11. So with that perfect result, it boosted us both to first and second. And then Dad and Brett got 10. So there wasn't a lot to it this week, to be fair. We didn't predict much right this week. And because of that, it hasn't changed the table at all, really, in terms of just adding a couple of points on for each people. The guests stay top on 139. I'm 10 behind on 129. Dan's on 125. And Mark has hit the 100 mark. He's on 102. But yeah, no predictions today because there's no midweek league games. Obviously, some teams are in National League Cup games over Tuesday and Wednesday. Braintree are at home to Nottingham Forest. Has Sutton got a National League Cup game, Louis?
Yeah, we've got Brighton at home tomorrow. It probably comes at the worst time considering everything. But if we get a win there, maybe we can start some momentum.
I've got a question about the National League Cup. Obviously, when you played Fulham, obviously we won't dwell on the scoreline, but did Terra Works play in that one? Do you remember?
I don't know. I did watch it. There was a lad who was on loan to Dagenham last year who bagged a hat-trick, Timothy something, got a double-barreled name. So he was the one that stood out, but I don't remember if Works played.
Yeah, I've still got good memories of commentating last year on that epic penalty shootout between Sutton and Braintree in the National League Cup, where I'd been singing Jack Sims' praises and then he kept saving all of our penalties.
It went on forever.
Yeah.
I'm just looking now, lads. Terrell Works did play in that game and he scored.
I think everyone scored from Fulham on that day.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, true. Yeah, it's true. Terrell Works scored the 4th of the 7. Yeah, I forgot about that game altogether, to be honest. Maybe your problem started in there.
Yeah, usually you try and brush those games under the carpet, but considering what's happened since, maybe it was a warning sign that our defence maybe needed a bit of work.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, like I say, you can't read too much into those games, but it doesn't help when you're not winning games and then you go into the cup games maybe for a bit of a distraction, and things like that, and then you end up getting results like that. It doesn't help. So hopefully things will turn around for you soon, Louis. We wish you all the best for the rest of the season, and thanks for coming on the podcast. Much appreciated, mate. Thanks, Craig, for joining me as always. We hope to have Mark back, not this week, the week after. He's due back. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get in the comments. Don't give us too much of a hard time, please. We don't mind a little bit, but that's it. But yeah, thanks everyone.
I say bring it on.
All right, well, aim
Thanks,
for
guys.
Craig then. Leave me alone. Just go for Craig. Take care, everyone. See ya.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.